First thing that they need to do is they need to figure out what they should and can delegate. Most of us can look, really just at our own desks or on our inbox and see areas that we can say, okay, I really like to do this, but I know I shouldn't. There's a list there. There's the list of, I hate doing this and I don't like doing this and I don't want to do this. So there's a list there. And what are the things that only I need to be doing? Only I can do this for my company. What is that list? And the two top lists should be delegated to somebody else immediately, because the cost of your time, you start putting that time together and saying, well, how long does it take me to book my own travel? It takes me 2 hours. Well, what's your time worth? As a business owner how much value there is in your own time, and actually do an ROI on it so that you can see right away the cost benefit of having somebody else do that at a lower pay scale. So I think that's number one, is really determining what you can and should delegate.
This is the Play Your Position podcast, where we huddle up, call the plays, and inspire you to run your ball into the end zone. Are you ready to score more game-winning touchdowns in your life, business, and career? Then listen up, because it's game time, baby. Now, here's your host, Mary Lou Kaiser.
Hello, Team PYP. Mary Lou Kaiser here. Welcome to today's episode of the Play Your Position podcast. I'm so glad you've decided to join us, because I have an amazing guest who's going to share with you and me her leadership journey, along with some insights about how to operate in what is becoming more and more a virtual world. Her name is Lisa Seal. Lisa, are you ready for kickoff?
Absolutely. Let's do this.
Let's do this indeed. So team, here are some things that I know about Lisa. She is the Chief Revenue Officer for BELAY. And BELAY is a company that is a modern virtual staffing solutions company. They provide entrepreneurs, small businesses, and anybody who's looking for help in the virtual world doing tasks that may not be in your wheelhouse. And believe me, I understand that if you're a creative like I am, you're going to need somebody who can help you with the tech side. And BELAY Solutions is set up to provide first-class services in this area. A major goal of Lisa's is helping clients climb higher by giving them the space, time, and energy to grow their business. And she believes that team collaboration and a healthy culture are the core of every department, allowing for extraordinary organizational growth. She is goal-driven, and it is her mission to encourage others so they may achieve all that they dream. And I know there's so much more to your story, Lisa. So let's jump right into it. Tell us your story about when you got the call to leadership. Paint that picture. Give us some context. What was going on in your life at the time? What do you remember? And how is it impacting where you are today?
Sure, I'd be honored. Thank you for having me. So yeah, I mean, my story is not like one pivotal moment in time. It really was kind of an organic progression, if you will, of where I found myself and ending up in leadership roles, really in anything I ended up doing. So I was very anxious to be done with school as a high school student. And so instead of going to college, I dove right into a sales position and just felt like I would rather work and make money than work in a book and get grades. So it was always more rewarding for me to see that achievement in my bank account, if you will, rather than in a grade book. So and it's interesting. I moved into what I thought was going to be a sales world, and it was, but it ended up being the leadership side of sales of the sales world at a very young age. And so each step I took in each industry that I worked within, I would end up not necessarily as the top salesperson, but always working alongside the leadership of the company and finding, basically creating a role for myself to end up in leadership of the sales part of an organization. And so that went on for years. And it's just been an organic journey. And so, now as a leader, and I'm not going to tell you how many years I've been doing it, a very long time. That'll age me, right? Almost 30 years of being in leadership and mostly focused on the sales side because I'm so motivated by a business's success, but even more importantly, watching individuals succeed. And being a part of that has just been honestly my lifeblood. I absolutely am passionate about it.
Wow, I love the difference between a bank account and or your checkbook and your grade book. That's
Yes.
fantastic.
Yes. I don't recommend it for everybody, but it
Right.
worked out for me.
Right. But I think in today's world, there are so many more options. And
Mhm.
the time that you made that decision, the push was for most young people to graduate from high school and go right
Yeah.
into college. And to a degree, that cultural message is still there, but it has become muddied in the
I
last
agree.
because of,
Mhm.
which brings us to the kind of work that you do now with Belay. You said
Yes.
in our pre-chat, you've been with them for 8 years, and here we are in 2023. So we're going back to like 2014, 2015, the mid 20 teens, when that was a very rich time in terms of this whole virtual life
Mhm.
exploding. And certainly
Yes.
the pandemic accelerated that explosion, but also brought it to people who never believed in a million years they would be operating virtually, right?
Absolutely.
So
Yes.
tell us more about Belay, what
Mhm.
kinds of services you offer and why you love being there.
Sure. So Belay, as you mentioned, is a remote staffing company. We staff virtual assistants and bookkeepers, accounting services. So it's really that back office production support that most business leaders need, from the small to the mid to even the larger businesses. We provide that. And what's beautiful about our option is that it's fractional, meaning you don't need somebody full time typically. And so we offer that in a more of a part time setting, and it's also remote. What is unique about Belay in the marketplace, if you will, one, we are the pioneer. We started all this back in 2010 before remote was cool. We were doing remote and doing it well. And our company has always remained remote. We have never had a brick and mortar. The entire corporate staff has always been remote. We win culture awards. And it's amazing to say that we have great culture and we're a remote organization. So it has been a journey, like you said, back in 2014 when I started with Belay. Part of our hardest hurdle to get, or the highest hurdle to get over with our prospects, was explaining how remote work can be really successful. And as you mentioned, since the pandemic, that's actually no longer something we have to convince people of. They've seen it. They had to live it. They had to make it work. And so it's been a really cool journey through the season from these last 8.5 years of seeing it, the whole remote work environment evolve into something that's much more normal. And we're proud that we've been doing it for so long, and that we feel like we have the ability to really teach people how to do it right and do it successfully, and do it with a sense of camaraderie with your team, which is weird since you're not in the same building with them. So it's just been an absolute joy.
Wow.
To work here.
I think it's interesting how you don't have to convince people anymore that this
Mm-mm.
is a viable way of doing business.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, what is, to use the football metaphor, what is the D line that you're seeing your clients and businesses out in the world today facing? What is the new area where you feel like, oh, we really have to work harder to convince them, show them, teach them X?
Yeah, it would probably be back to basics and teaching them to delegate, which is really what we've always wanted to focus on, and kind of not have the highlight be on the remote piece of it, because it's just I hate to say it this way, but it just is. It does. If you think about a busy business person who travels a lot, they're already working remotely with their staff. If their staff is still in a building, they're not there, they're traveling. So we try to kind of take that, right? So we kind of try to take that as away as it's not really a thing. What is a thing is that most leaders are doing things they should not be doing. And I always use this example because I love to book my own travel. I find joy in it. I like looking for flights. I like seeing what my options are. I like to look at the seat chart to see which seat I actually really want to sit in and what hotel I want to stay in. But it does not make sense for me in my position to spend my time for my company to book my own travel because that travel gets really expensive if I've spent an hour of my day playing on Delta.
Right.
So it's that kind of thing. So really to be able for leaders to really be able to stop and say, what should I really be doing for my business to be able to grow or to whatever your goal is in that moment? And what should I not be doing? I should probably not be responding to the hundreds of email I get every day, but they also can't be ignored. And I shouldn't be the one that goes into my calendar to make sure that I don't have any double bookings. That should already be handled for me. And I shouldn't worry about my expense reports. Somebody should be doing that for me or my travel. And the list goes on and on and on.
Right. And I would imagine that many of the clients that you work with or have worked with over the years have been smaller businesses, maybe even solopreneurs who are just getting started and they need that fractional help.
Yes.
Because their workload is increasing. Delegation, you said it, that's the hardest. It's letting go.
Yes.
It's trusting that somebody's going to do it correctly.
Yes.
What does correctly mean? That's another thing. It's our perception of doing things right.
Right. Yes.
Versus
yes, I agree. I had a mentor say that to me once. It's not about how people get to the result. It's what is the result. You have to allow everybody to do it the way they need to do it for themselves, as long as the result is the expectation. And so it is a challenge, especially for natural leaders, to not let go of those things that they want to hold so tight onto, but allowing your assistant to step in and take over. The relief that comes from letting go is incredible. I don't know what I would do without my VA. She balances me out, and not just as a leader, but as a whole person, as a mom, as a wife, and as the position I carry at BELAY. She supports all of that.
Yes. So for people who might be new to hiring a VA, what should somebody look for in finding a good fit? And I know BELAY probably has, you're a matchmaker, and I'm sure you have some intake, pre-assigning. But for somebody who's exploring bringing on a VA for the first time, what do you recommend them? What kinds of pre-gaming do they need to do before they even have a conversation about it?
Great question. The first thing that they need to do is they need to figure out what they should and can delegate. Most of us can look, really just at our own desks or in our inbox and see areas that we can say, okay, I really like to do this, but I know I shouldn't. There's a list there. There's the list of, I hate doing this and I don't like doing this and I don't want to do this. So there's a list there. And what are the things that only I need to be doing? Only I can do this for my company. What is that list? And the two top lists should be delegated to somebody else immediately, because the cost of your time, you start putting that time together and say, well, how long does it take me to book my own travel? It takes me 2 hours. Well, what's your time worth? As a business owner, how much value there is in your own time, and actually do an ROI on it so that you can see right away the cost benefit of having somebody else do that at a lower pay scale. So I think that's number one, is really determining what you can and should delegate. From there, you really need to be able to identify what soft skills will work best with you. We use different personality assessments and really just trying to dig into our clients' preferences just by having a good conversation with them. and asking very pointed questions of, when you are asking somebody to do something for you, you're giving them a task list. What are your expectations in communication? Do you like to be communicated with verbally, text message, email? Like getting into the nitty gritty of what does that look like for you? It's not just the tasks that the VA are going to be doing. Really, those are pretty generic for most people. It's email, calendar, expense reporting. You might be using different systems, but the tasks themselves are pretty generic. But that soft skill side, we can give you the most talented VA in the world, but if you don't connect with that person on a personal level or on a emotional level, and I don't mean emotional, but where you actually enjoy speaking to that person, you're never going to utilize them to the degree that you actually need to. And so soft skills is a big piece that we believe is what makes us successful.
Mm-hmm. That just the method of communication. There are people who want text. Just text me. I don't want it. Don't email me. I'm not even going in there, but I'll respond to a text. And nice. I like that distinction. Great things for people to think about. What has challenged you most about being a leader, Lisa, in the last in the time that you've been where you are now?
For me, I would say it's scaling the business during hyper growth, trying to avoid the growing pains that come with that. And then that balance of making sure that your employees and your clients still feel very cared for while all of that is going on in the background. It's trying to do that simultaneously can be very challenging. In one hand, you're having, very direct, good conversations with employees to make sure they're still motivated. And in the background, there's, a swirl of activity that as a leader you're handling, and just making sure that there's a solid balance. You don't lose sight on either one. You can't hyper focus on employees' satisfaction because then you'll lose focus on growing the business, and you can't only focus on growing the business because then you lose good employees that don't feel cared for anymore.
Okay. What are some of the growing pains of a hyper growth company?
I would say mainly systems and processes, right? I mean, as you grow, your technology needs to grow with you, and you outgrow old technology that you thought was going to get you through. So that's probably the biggest piece, and making sure that you have the right staff that can step in and help the teams pivot in how they do things. You can't run a business with 5 clients the exact same way you run a business with 2,000 clients. Something has to get more efficient, and there has to be processes and systems in place. And those systems and processes change and they evolve. And so I think that's probably the biggest challenge in hyper growth mode, is that you still have to operate the business, but you're also trying to ensure the processes and systems that go behind it are evolving with that.
Yeah, it's such a good insight. And again, it comes back to holding on to, well, we're familiar with this system. I'm sure those words have gone through many a leader's heads, or even in conversations around the table. But we've been using this for so long. I've had numerous conversations on this podcast with people who are systems and processes experts, and some who build enterprise level custom, because a company has gotten to a point where out of the box doesn't work anymore. They have to have something that is specific to them.
Right.
And that's a whole different animal.
Yes, it is.
Shopping around the marketplace
while building the business and growing the business. Right.
Yeah.
Huge challenge.
Huge challenge. And if BELAY is 13 years old or going on 13 years old, I mean, first of all, that's exceptional in the business world, because we all know the stats. Most don't even make it to 5 years. Right. And certainly the pandemic, in a strange twist of fate, helped you at your company, because more and more people were all of a sudden saying, oh, we can't meet in person. We can't. We have to go virtual. I need help. Where do I go?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So that's when you look ahead to the future, I mean, have we really hit the tipping point do you think, Lisa, that we're never going to the way life used to be, where a lot of people commuted and went to brick and mortar facilities to conduct business in a more 9 to 5 kind of model? Do you think those days are permanently gone?
I don't know that they're permanently gone. I think what we're seeing in, we talk to a lot of small and mid-sized businesses, and what we're really seeing is that the hybrid is coming back. So where there's more options to be able to work from home, but they still want you to come to the office a couple of days a week. And so there's this, honestly, a nice balance, I think, that is now an option that back when I started my career, that was not an option. Everybody got up and drove to work every day. And now I think that, I don't think it's going to be one way or the other. I think it looked like it might happen that way after COVID, that people would never go back in. But after working from home for 8.5 years, I can see wanting to go to an office, a day a week, or just to go see people in person. So yeah. I do think that we're going to see a healthy balance between the two.
I like that. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Being in the house all the time, for some people is great and they don't want it any other way. But for others, no, I need a place to go.
Right. Right.
Change of environment,
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's halftime here at the Play Your Position podcast, and we've got ourselves a great game. While you're up grabbing another snack and topping off your favorite beverage, make sure to subscribe to the show so you never miss another play. PYP is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever great podcasts can be found. Now, let's get back to the game.
As somebody who's been a sales leader, let's talk about sales, because no business can succeed without strong sales. I mean, that's what keeps a business running.
Right.
What are some things that you help your clients achieve when it comes to overcoming objections in the sales process? Obviously, hiring a VA is going to free up the leader of the business or the executive leadership team's time. They no longer have their hands in the weeds of accounting and the calendaring and all that stuff you mentioned before. But now they're facing, okay, now we have all this time. We've got to grow our business. Well, the only way you grow a business is by making more sales. So get us into that state, because I know from just my own experience and also being in different mastermind groups that this can be the bane of a business's existence. Is how do we get more sales?
Right, right. Well, I mean, I think that certainly by a business leader, and like you said earlier, we serve a lot of solopreneurs and a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of smaller businesses, which means the founder, the owner, is the one who probably is doing the selling if they haven't hired a sales staff yet. And again, like you mentioned, if they're the ones, what we say, working in the business rather than on the business, if they're the ones in the weeds of the business, then they're not focusing on those sales efforts and really bringing in more clients or revenue or selling more parts or whatever that may be for them. And so I think that's key. They have to have support. They have to have somebody that is there as their right-hand person, their gatekeeper, to keep them out of the weeds, so that when they do go to hire sales departments, or they're already running their own sales departments, that they're able to give more time and energy to those people to ensure that they're targeting their right client. Have they identified their perfect client? Have they identified their perfect product? And so being able to give them that space and time to be able to do that, and ensure that they are working with the right other outsourced support. Maybe they need to outsource marketing because they're small enough or they don't have their own department yet. But if they're booking their own travel, they don't have time to look into that. So it really is, for us, from our perspective, it's allowing that client to free themselves up of all that noise so that they can focus on the sales that will positively affect their business.
Okay. And it's, as far as the whole process of finding your and then targeting the ideal client. I mean, every business has an ideal client. What are you seeing is working for people? And I would love for you to talk about the social media soup in terms of, is social media, places like Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, etc., where small businesses, medium businesses should be putting their time and money and effort into playing that game? Is something else emerging? Is picking up the phone, that old-fashioned thing that nobody uses their phone as a phone anymore, right?
Yeah.
What's
So
your opinion on this?
Yeah, my opinion on this is that there is, again, a fine balance. Yes, social media is where we all get our information, right? I mean, if I don't feel like turning on the news, I know that I can go to the news Facebook page, or I can go to TikTok these days. My goodness, I mean, that's everywhere, right? So that is absolutely a source of information. Not always good information, but there is a source of information. So yeah, should businesses have a budget to advertise, to have a presence on social media? Absolutely. And it does help them build a brand and a business and potentially get leads and interest in their business. But you hit the nail on the head. People don't pick up the phone enough anymore. And you know what I even think is more powerful? People don't send real mail anymore either. How about a handwritten note? When's the last time you got a handwritten note? Right? So for Belay, and the way I lead our sales department here, is that we make sure we are not losing sight of that. You can take the human out of follow-up very, very quickly because of technology. And I think that falls very flat if you're only speaking to your audience through tech. If you're not picking up the phone, and if you're not connecting with your clients on a personal level, not through social media or digital marketing, then I think you're missing out. I think it's really powerful to send a prospect or a client a thank you note, handwritten with a real stamp on it, saying thank you for your time. It meant a lot to me, and I really enjoyed our conversation.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to remember you more than they're going to remember the person that just sent them an Instagram, ad that told them more about their business and linked them to their website.
Right. Oh God, I just had that experience on LinkedIn. A person reached out to me to connect, and I looked at the profile, and we had some people in common that I respect. And this person has a very good, well done profile with a photo and . So I accepted it. And literally within 5 minutes, I got the blast.
Oh.
And I thought, and you want to talk about a mismatch. I am not this person's target audience based on what they're doing. And didn't take any time to first just say, hey, so great to connect.
Right.
Whatever that may look like for a person. When I reach out to my podcast guests on LinkedIn, because that's the Instagram and LinkedIn are the two social channels that I have chosen to put my time into. And I like those two channels, and I get engagement, and I'm able to engage with people that I enjoy and want to learn from. And I'm interested in what are you doing? What's going on with so-and-so? And I do take the time to send a quick note in that digital space that's personal, not just, hey, it's there. You have used this term several times today. There's that fine line, that fine balance between one side of automation, technology, having to expand and maybe take on some things that aren't comfortable, but they have to be put in place if you're going to achieve the next goal.
Sure.
And then remaining a human with the human touch.
Yeah.
And it's because technology is so much a part of the younger generations now. They are growing up without the human touch in the way that for our generation, we experienced.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's probably why I see that focus. I have two older teenagers, and to ask them to pick up the phone and call to order pizza is like asking them to clean their room. I mean, it's painful. It's not common or natural for them. And so I think, my mom always says the pendulum always swings back, and it's gone too far in my opinion, to relying 100% on technology. It takes away relationship, and it takes away from building connections, real connections with people. And so I think for a sales department or the sales part of an organization to have a healthy balance between, of course, using technology for efficiency, but connecting with people on a more personal level is it's not done enough, and so it will stand out.
Yeah, it will. I had an experience just recently that was really interesting. I went into New York City. I went to a toy association party
Mm.
at a toy store called FAO Schwartz, and some
Mm.
listeners may be familiar with FAO Schwartz. And there was a boy there, a 9-year-old boy, who was his official title was the chief storytelling officer for a toy company called Schleich, which I
Mm.
believe is German based.
Okay.
Anyway, sweet and so enthusiastic and so excited to be in this role. And he was there just doing, promoting his love of playing with real toys versus being on a video game. And
Mm.
anyway, I went up to him and I just, I'm a former teacher, and I introduced myself and I said, I have to tell you, it's just so neat to see some, a young person who I can tell you love toys so much. So we had our picture taken together. He was so excited. And then at the end of the year, one thing that I do is I know a lot of people practice this, is I reflect on my year and I practice gratitude. And the holidays are a common time for people to send a handwritten note or a card
Right.
to those in their circle. So I sent him a little. He was one of my highlights of the year. So I sent him a little gift, just a toy and a note and a copy of the photo. And I said, I don't know if you remember me, but you helped make my 2022 that much more amazing. And I'll tell you, so mid-January, I get this card in the mail. I'm looking at the ad. I was like, who is this? I don't even know. I didn't remember. I opened it up and it was a handwritten note from him and his mother. And his
Oh.
mother said to me, he does not understand the power of a handwritten note. And I am trying to teach him and his brother why this is so important. And I'll tell you, I tell that story just to emphasize how powerful it is. And also just, it was so moving. I haven't told that story. So thank you for letting me share that on your episode.
Yes, absolutely. It's so true. It's powerful. It's such a simple thing, but it's so powerful.
Right. And I think, you have children, so you're witnessing what technology, how it's impacting an entire generation of young people, and tools like being able to open an app and order a pizza. That's great. Okay. However, the pendulum. Yes.
Right.
So I'm going to switch a little bit here, Lisa, as far as a leader, as a mother, as a parent, not even but as a mom, but just as a parent, what are some things that you wish more parents knew based on the work you do? Because you are in the virtual world, you are in a high-tech world. What are some things that you wish more parents knew about helping their children become the best they can, given the conditions they're growing up in?
Well, that's a big question. So I have a senior in high school and a freshman in college. And it has been fascinating watching my daughter, especially who's in college, pull herself out of the virtual schooling that my kids' generation all went through because of COVID, right? So where we lived, our schools were closed and for quite a long time, and they had to do school from home alone. And it's been interesting to watch my daughter, who's sitting in her dorm room, probably right now as we're chatting, studying, and forcing her to pull herself out of that isolation is what I keep calling it. It's isolation. The world, yes, you can reach it through your computer, right? We can go anywhere because of the internet. It's amazing. It's powerful, and it's an incredible thing for them to have. However, there is a world at your fingertips that is literally just outside your door, and you're missing out if you're not experiencing it. So as a parent, my husband and I really push both of our children to put their phones down, step away from your computer, and go have lunch with somebody, go, meet up and study with them in person. And so I find that when my kids spend too much time with their face in a screen, that they no longer know how to communicate externally. And quite honestly, they are isolated and they feel it. And they don't realize it until you make them pull themselves out of it. So for me, that's been a big focus in our family, so that they don't become those isolated, which unfortunately has become the norm. An isolated person who just can't be comfortable outside of their own space.
Right. And they find comfort inside whatever apps they're spending time in.
Yes.
It could be Instagram, it could be Fortnite.
Right.
Or one of these, for boys particularly, they get marketed different things than girls. And isolation really is dangerous for mental health. And it's the same, very similar experience for many professionals. Adults suddenly experienced that shock of, I'm not around people anymore, or I'm stuck in a house with the same people every day. Right. I can't tell you how many women I met after the pandemic lifted, who with our first meetup, like we'd be a circle of 15, and 40% of them said, I'm getting divorced. I couldn't stand. I learned so much about my partner during this time that I no longer can. And it happened both ways. I mean, that could be a gift, right? Yes. So maybe our young people, your children, my son experienced the pandemic in college where he had to come home. He was living, he had to come home for 3 semesters during COVID. And that impacted, that's going to impact them as leaders emerging into the world, right?
Yeah. And I see it with the school districts as well. There are still, even though my daughter goes to a Big 10 school, she still has classes that are online. And it's, she's sitting in her dorm room getting on a Zoom call with a professor. And it's fascinating to me. So I feel like there are people that got stuck in that isolation and honestly can't pull themselves out. And it's sad. And it's unfortunate. And so I think that, again, I go back to that balance. It's amazing to be able to do things remotely, but my goodness, there is a whole world just outside your door that you're missing out on if you don't step outside of it.
There really is. And one of the things that I really respect about what your company does, what BELAY does, is you have a teaching element to it. It's not just a marketplace to pick a VA or somebody who helps with accounting and then get on with your day, but you really focus on culture and right fit and the educational piece about how this relationship works.
Yes.
So that people are feeling connected even if you're not meeting in person. And I think that's a growing area of navigating again, that fine line between a lot of what we do naturally needs to be remote now. That doesn't make sense.
Right.
Financially or time, right?
Yeah. And the newer generation, the younger generation coming up, the next business leaders, they're going to need to be taught how to connect with people on a deeper level because they haven't. They have not had that opportunity because of, like we said, technology and the isolation from COVID. And this whole upcoming next business leader generation is going to need a lot of coaching on how to work well with others and connect with others to have a deeper meaning to what we do day in and day out.
How does what's your onboarding process at BELAY when you are looking to grow your team? You need people who can serve your clients. What for small business owners who may be thinking about hiring a virtual team? What are some of the basics that you have in place that listeners could learn from or think about? Oh, I hadn't considered that.
Right. Yeah. So I think that the hiring process for us is probably very similar to anyone else. We're very mindful of the right profile. We do use personality assessments to help determine whether they'll fit well for the role that they're being hired for. So I think that's probably similar. I think where we differ and what we really put a lot of emphasis on is the training. We have their first 3 weeks planned out by the hour every day.
Wow.
Before they even start on that, let's say Monday. When they open up their new computer on Monday and they get access to their new email and their new calendar, their calendar's already full with training meetings from every individual that's going to be helping them for 3 weeks. And so it is very, very well planned, like I said, down to the hour. And if it's time, meaning they have to go into our HR system and watch a video, it's even scheduled for them. So it is very, very crystal clear what it's going to look like for the next 3 weeks for them. And we do that so at the end of that 3-week training period, we know that they have touched every single thing we feel they need to. And we're having those follow-up meetings at the end of each day with their leader. What did you learn today? Is there something you don't understand? What questions do you have so far? And they're also meeting with somebody from every single department, because we find that it isn't just important for them to learn their role. They need to know how their role impacts all of the other roles in the company and ultimately how that impacts our client or our customer.
Yes. Well, that's impressive.
Yeah.
I bet that took a while to really get 3 weeks worth of events for a new hire. And for me, the takeaway is obviously Belay is very, very clear about what you expect and how your business works and the mechanics, the basics of what each new person is going to be doing based on their role. So thank you for sharing that. I think that's a great example, and it speaks to why you guys win awards and are recognized, because you've developed a system that
right.
Yeah.
And it makes them feel welcomed, right? I mean, it makes the new employee feel like, wow, you really planned for my arrival.
Right.
You've put a lot of time and energy into this, and they already feel the love the minute they start, rather than, obviously there's a gain for the business. Sure, right? We get this well-trained employee is exactly so they can get up and running faster, but really it's a cultural thing. We want them to feel welcomed and a part of the organization, and they meet somebody from every department. So again, because we're remote, they immediately feel like this business opened their doors and welcomed them through them, even though they're remote doors.
Yeah. Well, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're proud of it.
Yeah. And I imagine turnover is very low.
It is very, very low.
Yeah.
Very, very low.
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of companies that could learn from what you guys do, for sure. That's great. Well, as we come to what has been a really great conversation, the end here, Lisa, where can listeners learn more about you and Belay and what's in it for them?
Sure. Yeah. So belaysolutions.com/delegate would be an awesome place to start. It is a download for anybody who wants to do a little delegation quiz. We call it our delegation matrix, and it's to help leaders determine, like I said, what should you be doing? What shouldn't you be doing? What do you not like to do? What do you love to do, but you probably shouldn't do? It's a little exercise to help them kind of get started thinking that way.
Okay. I'll put that link on your show notes page at pyppodcast.com. And thank you for creating something. I love these kinds of self-assessments, because it can really provide some insight that, we can't see what we can't see.
That's right.
Right. What is it that the fish can't see the water it's swimming in?
Yes. I love that saying. Yes.
Right. And as far as what you do to invest in yourself, Lisa, what are a couple of books that have been instrumental on your own leadership journey?
Go Giver by Bob Berg is probably one of my favorite. That really kind of solidified my sales belief that we are here. We're all salespeople, and we are all, regardless of what you do in life, we're always trying to sell something, whether it's to our spouses, to our children, or in business. And so it really put that into perspective for me, that it really is all about ensuring that what we're selling is for the benefit of the person on the other end, that they actually need what we're selling, and that we're not just trying to push our wares, if you will. So that's been a powerful one for me. And then 21 Irrefutable Laws by John Maxwell, hands down, probably the best leadership book that impacted me at a much younger age that I still refer back to.
Okay. Well, I'd love putting links to books on my guest show notes page, because you just don't know who needs to get a book,
Right,
that would open up their eyes.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, that's fantastic. So before we say goodbye, Lisa, one more question. Who is your football team? Who or what do you watch on Sunday?
Well, I'm a Saturday football girl.
Oh, you're college football.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if I had to pick Sunday, and this is a sad one to say, but Detroit Lions, and
It's
we
okay.
love them. But no, we really are. We're a Saturday family. We're Michigan State football. Go green all day long.
All right. Spartans.
Yep.
Yep. Very good. Well, this has been great. I have enjoyed listening to your stories, learning from you, learning more about Belay, and thank you for taking time to bring us into your world and, give us your take on what being a great leader is, how we can improve, and reminding all of us it's about delegation at the end of the day.
It is. Well, thank you for having me. I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, Mary Lou. It's been wonderful.
Hey team, Mary Lou here. Who's number one in football changes from year to year. Fashion trends come and go, same with musical tastes. But leadership skills, they never go out of style. In fact, these days, leadership is an essential survival skill for a world that demands more from us than ever before. To succeed these days, you need to know how to show up for yourself so that you can then do the work you love with people you like the way you want. The Play Your Position Leadership Playbook helps you do this, and it's free. Go to pyppodcast.com to download your copy today. If being more successful this year, next year, in the 21st century is on your to-do list, get your copy of the Play Your Position Leadership Playbook now. pyppodcast.com. It's at the top of the page. You can't miss it. That's pyppodcast.com, and start being more of the leader you are meant to be today. This podcast was produced by Daniel Romeros. Show notes for this episode can be found over at pyppodcast.com. I'm Mary Lou Kaiser. Thanks for listening.
Here at the Play Your Position podcast, we believe that the road to self-mastery and a life well lived starts with answering the call to leadership. That's when the fun really begins. Send this episode to any friends who might need to hear the inspiration and ideas you heard today. And feel free to rate and review us on your favorite podcast platform.